You know when you're scouring around, doing a little bit of scouting, and you come across a player or players that have you dreaming of the future, already planning hypothetical trophy parades? Well, this year, we might have found a couple of them. We've had an absolutely wild season this year in just about every single way possible, and right now we're consoling ourselves with a little bit of transfer shopping over on stream currently. So join us over there after you've caught up over here, especially as we're doing a Christmas quiz later, as it is the last stream and last video, technically, of the year as well. So join us there. The VODs of all the streams can, of course, be found on the second channel. They go out the day after every stream. Link can be found in the description. So we came into Season 4 of Building a Nation with Sirens in Malta with brand new goals. Having won the title last season at an absolute canter, we knew that we needed to make sure our squad was strong enough in order for us to defend said title. We also had the distraction now of playing in the Champions League for the first time in the save, knowing that if we could just progress through a single round, there'd be an excellent chance of us getting a group stage slot of some sort. As always, we've been extremely busy with transfers, as we often are in the early stages of these saves, trying to get as many young and, in theory, high potential players in that we can then qualify as homegrown players for European competitions for us, as well as for the loan farm for the other Maltese sides, and that's become a very important part of our transfer strategy. However, we did have some outs this year that we need to talk about first. That and me accidentally spending nearly £1 million on facilities.
£190,000 on the youth facilities, that's okay. I thought we were safe when I saw the youth. I've just spent £1 million because I thought the board would say no.
The first out was Samba Kone, who of course you'll remember from last season. He wasn't getting the game time anymore, and we figured it was the right move for him. But once again, Lusitania Lourosa came up clutch for us. These Portuguese teams have been willing to buy our talent, and they paid £90,000 for him, which was just nice, gave us a little extra cash that we could throw back into the team. As we were working with worldwide scouting for the entire year this year, we had a reasonable transfer budget, and I put like 80% of it straight into scouting because I knew that we probably wouldn't be spending much in actual fees this year. It would mostly just be trying to find the players. And that's why we were even more happy to sell Rafael Undong to Alverca, who I believe again is a Portuguese side, this time for £200,000. Portuguese sides have really been stumping up cash for some of our lesser wanted players, but having a bit of transfer money coming in was just useful as it allowed us to then maybe actually spend a little bit ourselves, even though we were only getting 40% of the money coming in. The same then applied for Kosene Samase, who is crazy to think actually at one point was like a 5-star player in this team, and how much we've been able to strengthen since his arrival really just show what we've been able to do in that period. He wasn't getting football anymore, so he went to Niki Volou, a Greek side who were apparently like a 2nd to 3rd tier side, but we're actually in the top flight in this save, and they paid us £100,000 for him, which is always nice. But by far the biggest transfer of the save so far as a sale goes was Nathaniel Nwusu, and you're like, hang on a minute, didn't you sign him for like moon money, make him your highest paid player, give him a match highest earner clause? Yes, we did all of those things, and then got extremely annoyed because he just was not cutting it in matches. You know, in FM, finding a goalkeeper that actually works for you in the match engine is sometimes just more important than looking at their pure attributes. You could get a goalkeeper that looks perfect on paper, and they will constantly make errors, constantly not come for balls, and just play badly. Well, unfortunately, the Nwusu experiment for the 2nd year in a row has ended in failure, but not entirely, because on transfer deadline day, we'd identified a goalkeeper that we wanted to bring in to replace him, and kind of just decided, you know what, let's try and get him out. And through the wonderful work of an intermediary, we were able to sell him to Altay in Turkey for £550,000, which is by far the highest transfer fee we've received in this entire save, and we were very happy, as we felt like our new man could do the job. And believe me when I say, our new man has not disappointed at all. But that ended up giving us a nice little bit of money, albeit this was a January transfer, but still, we were able to work with it and actually spend a little bit of cash this year, which we haven't done really much in this save. Still not a lot of money, but a little bit of money. And we're going to kick things off with one of our favourites. This is Miroslav Lucic, came in from Tomislav for £23,000. So you can again see we were actually starting to invest a little bit of money into the team. The 18-year-old Bosnian, and he was supposed to be a kind of backup to Christian Rodriguez so that we had more depth in that role. He looked good, and this year he has just shone for us. 11 goals and 13 assists across all competitions. What a player he has turned into at just 18 years old. Now you'll notice that he's got some interesting ones here. And basically what happened with him is he failed an English language course and then used that to decide that he wanted to leave the club. There was nothing we could say. No bring in a player, no send you home on a leave of absence. Absolute nonsense, personally. So we're just kind of hoping that we can keep hold of him until he eventually cheers up, because that is wild that he's having the best time scoring goals left and right and then goes, you know what, I failed an English language course, better just randomly leave. Though we are training him to look for a pass instead of shooting, because although he has scored 11 goals this year, he probably would have had about 25 assists if he just passed the ball. Next was Mohamed El Shazli, who I showed you you in the end of the last recap video, the amazing Egyptian midfielder that we'd found. We were actually trading him initially to try and play as a libero, as our hopes were in the future to move to a tactic that would use one. And then towards the end of the year, we just started using him outright as a mez. And you wouldn't think that his attributes would lend him very well to playing as a mez. And yet he's managed 13 goals for us this season. He has been absolutely stunning this year, and he really does shore up our midfield, makes us far more stable there, and has still managed to contribute with a lot of goals this year. Somehow. I don't even know how, but he just has. Big up El Shazli. Then there was our biggest signing to date. £57,000 on Mateus Diaz from Juventud over in Uruguay. Now, the aim with him, he was originally a right-sided player, but he didn't have the speed. But what he did have were some really nice attributes elsewhere, and we felt that the best move for him was to actually move him to be the mez in our system, which is where we've been training him this year. He's only just got comfortable with it, so his game time and performances this year have been a little bit sparing as a result of that, but he hasn't really kicked up a fuss, and he might be on £700 a week, but we feel like he's a really solid player for us for the future. So £57,000 is a decent amount, but we felt there was a good player there, well worth it. That was until we absolutely broke the bank on Mateus Carrera, a Paraguayan from Deportivo Recoleta, £150,000. This was basically all the money we got from the Ndong deal was thrown straight into Mateus Carrera. We needed a new centre-back, and honestly, at the time, he looked like a world beater, like a five-star guy in our team. And in actuality, he's been good, but not spectacular. And I think he might be a bit of a miss as far as transfers go. When you look at how he's rated on our squad now, he definitely hasn't really lived up to the hype. He's played a lot of games this year, but has been a little bit underwhelming. He also failed a language course and tried to leave the club as well, but luckily we were able to convince him to go away for a month. Then he came back and he was fine, but it's been a lot of that. It is worth noting as well that we were able to extend the loans once again of Boalo, Marza and Esselink too. So we kept those three because we knew that they would count as homegrown next year, and just keeping that progression going in case we wanted to do that was going to be a good plan for us. And next, probably the biggest miss of the year for me in many ways, although he was free, Moritz Bremer. He came in from Brook Moor. The point is, we had to pay £925 a week for him, which at the time we thought was an okay piece of business given that we needed backup. We were so light on the left side in general, like both wing and defence, that we needed someone. And I think basically we got a bit stiffed on that price. I don't think that that was the right amount of money to be paying him because he hasn't really played all that much this season. I mean, he's played, 18 matches, but he's not been fantastic at all. And he might be a guy that we try to cash in on this summer because I think we can do better. On the other hand, someone that's turned out much better than we expected is Jar Jar. And yes, because he's Brazilian, I believe that is how his name is pronounced, Jar Jar. So he came in on a free transfer from Prospero, one of the free amateur players. I don't think he was actually an amateur player because technically they don't have those contracts in Brazil. But, oh no, I know what he was. Transfer deadline day. An agent offered him to us. He was free, got him, and he's a pacey winger with decent crossing. And this year, I've been very impressed with him. He had a couple of injuries which kept him out a little bit, but he's been sort of the rock on that left-hand side for us in many ways. Only the 2 goals, but the 9 assists have been very, very comforting. Only 18 years old as well. I think there's a lot to come from this guy. That resolute personality is really going to help him. We also picked up Lindemar Kental on a free on the same day, just transfer deadline day, just finding these players that were just being brought to us and just picking them up. Now, he's not really featured a great deal this season for us. The hope is to get him out on loan. That's part of the plan. He's meant to be a loan farm type of guy, but there's some quality there. He just hasn't really had a chance to show it yet. A player that did come in and go straight into the loan farm was Aldivan de Silveira, and also Aldivan. What a fantastic name for when you're getting your shopping delivered. Now back for another paid transfer. This is Zoran Ström, a Slovenian that we picked up from Triglav Kranja for 2.7 million? I wish. Well, actually, I don't. That would be a massive overpayment. 2.7k, finally back to the paid transfers. But again, a youngster, solid player, attributes. Like, his physicals are a bit sus, but the fact is we just want to get bodies in there. It's the sort of guy that will probably fade down the squad a little bit as we improve, but then can go straight into the loan farm. Same applies to Kurt Smith of CU Academy, bringing our first Australian into the club. Now, he actually had a couple of good performances for us initially, but has faded since then. Again, the plan is for the loan farm for him. However, he's one of the first players that we've really struggled to find a loan for. Not because people don't want him, but because he doesn't want them. We've managed to arrange several different loans, and he's turned them down every single time. And I know that's a problem that some of you have run into with Building a Nations this year. And this is the first player I've really struggled with. But I haven't noticed it too bad. It's just him. And I think it's just maybe he has the wrong personality for things. I don't know. He is fairly professional. Either way, quality player in here. Next is Besim Rizvanovic, a German or Bosnian German from Lot on a free transfer again. Now, the thing with him, we obviously had a lot of right-sided players that had the sort of speed, the ability to cross and whatnot, and we didn't really need more depth in that role. So what we've been doing this year is we've been training him to play on the left-hand side as an inverted winger with that right foot of his, and we're hoping that once he's sort of got more comfortable there, he could be a nice little option for us going forward in that role as well. And for free, can hardly say no. Look at the wage as well, only £300 a week. We've really been prioritising our transfers based on, are they good, are they free, do they want basically no money? And that's why you'll notice there's a lot of players are like less than £100 a week, because those guys are just bargains. Not everyone's a Bremer. Now back to the paid transfers with Mohamed Afifi, and we've been basically running for the second half of the year an Egyptian midfield in the middle with El Shazli and Mohamed Afifi. Because you know we had Papadopoulos last year with his unbelievable passing and vision. Well, Mohamed Afifi came along and said, I've got this. And he has 18 passing, 14 vision, admittedly. Fantastic first touch. Very aggressive, admittedly. But he has been really, really good once he's found his feet in this team. Now, he may not have the highest potential ceiling, much like Shazli, but for just under £20,000 from El Marique, again, fantastic piece of business. Very, very happy with him. £550 a week, but still, he's got under 20 caps for Egypt. Those two in the midfield have been fantastic in the second half of the year and have really formed a nice tight bond. Next, we have Jafinho on a free. Hasn't really played a lot yet, as we're not really sure what to do with him. He's really good, but we're just not quite sure how he fits into the style of football we really want to play at the moment. We were thinking about even training him as a right back. In fact, I think I am even training him there just to give us more cover, because we don't use DMs and we don't really have a proper defensive style midfielder. So it made sense to try and retrain him a little bit, or just get him in the loan farm. But for free, can hardly go wrong. £160 a week. Next is another like this, but potentially even better. Marko Milojevic, who we did have to pay decent money for as far as his wages, and £14,000 to Metalat to give him his £625 a week. But he's obviously injured at the moment, which is why he's suffering from a little bit of this, but he is superb. We had to give him star player, but he hasn't complained about it just yet, as he hasn't really featured too much. And from looking at him, we eventually decided that actually we're going to train him to be a centre-back. Albeit with his crappy heading, we're going to try and work on that too, but he's got a lot of the attributes we'd like for him there, because again, he doesn't really suit what else we're doing, but still, he's a fabulous player that we brought in, and if nothing else, we could maybe move him on for money, but I reckon there's a player there. And you could argue that he's one of the monsters, but there's two other players that I think have been game changers for us, and certainly will be in the long run. And the first of them is our record signing by a comfortable margin. We could not believe our luck. And this is he. This is Ronnie Chalot, an Israeli striker that we brought in from Apoel Niramat HaSharon. And the reason we liked him the most is because, I mean, firstly, you can see we've paid over the course of like many installments, £250,000 for his services, but he is only 18, so he will be homegrown. Already has under 21 caps. Now, he's got reasonable pace. He can jump a little bit. He's got in fact, got very good agility and balance. 5'11". He's basically got very good physicals. Acceleration can do with a bit of work, but he's fast as well, the top end. His striker temp poles, dribbling, finishing, first touch, composure are solid, if not spectacular, but can improve with time. He kind of just ticked a lot of the boxes, and we felt like he would be the long-term successor to someone like Lucas Marza, who, again, is not actually our player, and eventually we're not going to be able to loan him. So we needed a guy that could do that job. And when he joined, I said to chat, if he gets double digits for us this season over the second half of the year, because he was a January signing, I'll be happy, as it's his settling in period. And we were a little bit worried at times, but in the end, as you can see, 11 goals and 3 assists. Very happy with that from Roni, and hopefully next year we can sort of see mid-20s goals from him, because he's just going to keep getting better, hopefully. And I'm just very excited about bringing him in, but I think he really does make us a lot better once he's settled in. Next is another player that's actually gone under the radar a bit for pretty much everybody watching the streams, including myself in many ways. Lucas Seifert, free transfer from Pregarten, an Austrian centre-back. He's actually very good. Now, he does lack that little bit of jumping reach, potentially, but he's good on the, well, say decent on the floor. He's got okay passing, his tackling is great, teamwork, positioning, very aggressive, but very brave as well, got great concentration, lovely mentals, only 18 years old, and he's actually played a lot of matches in the second half of the year and has become one of our starting centre-backs sort of out of nowhere. So we're very, very pleased with him, and I think he could be a really good signing for us in the future, given that he's not on huge money. We've got an extension clause in his contract, I believe, yep, which I'll just trigger now because reasons. Right, I said that we got rid of Nwusu for a reason, and I'm about to show you the reason. And this is the reason. This is Bernd Wisniewski, a German Norwegian. He has a very sounding Polish name, but he's not Polish in any way, apparently. He must have lineage there, I suspect. But he has come in on a free transfer from Fyllingsdalen in Norway, I believe that is, and he is superb. Now, one of the things we were struggling with Nwusu was we felt that his command of area and aerial reach, especially command of area, seemed to be letting him down. He was just not coming to things a lot of the time, and his reflexes were letting him down too. And it feels to me like this year, command of area, aerial reach, and reflexes are extremely important. One-on-ones doesn't seem to be as key. He may have actually only kept 4 clean sheets in his 12 matches so far, but he's also saved penalties for us and has made some absolutely godlike saves at crucial moments. The kind of goals that were just going in all the time in the first half of the year, Wisniewski has been keeping out with aplomb. And at only 18 years old, he's got a lot of room to improve, and we're very excited about him, and he feels good in the match engine. He plays well, and I'm just very, very happy to finally have a goalkeeper that I feel like I can rely on, especially at only 18. I even used the squad planner this year, sort of.
Those guys are kind of rich. Oh, that's the guy. Chat. I just added all 3 of these guys to the squad planner as goalkeepers. First time I've ever used the squad planner. I want to see my assistant's face when he walks in the morning, just sees the whiteboard and goes, are you high? Never ever want to inquire about a player. I'll either bid or I won't. I want to be notified when I've done a stupid. Oh my god, I've done it! I withdrew it just to...
We did make one very tiny tweak to the tactic this year, and that was to set the right-sided winger to shoot less often, because we found that Lucic was, as I already said, getting into some poor positions, getting into good positions, but they're bad angles, and then just shooting from silly angles constantly. So we're trying to minimize that a little bit from that right-hand side, and it seems to be working slightly. But if you wanted an idea of, generally speaking, how I've been lining up, especially in the second half of the year, this has kind of been it for the most part, with Wisniewski, Uilaki, Carrera, Boileau, alternating around with Seifert, Dick obviously at left side, Lucic, Afifi, Shazley, and Jar Jar, of course, as the midfield, with Randrup and Shallow up front. And the benches look really, really stable as well. When you look at some of the quality that we've got there, it's been a nice deep squad, but we still have lacked a little bit of depth of quality. Depth of quantity is there, but the quality hasn't quite been there yet. Which brings us to how all of this worked out for us in the league this season. We absolutely flew out of the traps, winning our first 5 league games on the bounce and scoring some absolutely gorgeous goals.
Go on, more goals. I want more. Essling, slip it through the middle. There's the pass. Randrup! That was nice. Who was that with the assist? Was that Papadopoulos? Look at that outside of the foot from Papadopoulos.
However, we were then immediately silenced by Marseschlock. Now, you might remember they were the only side that beat us in the league last season. Our one league defeat came at Marseschlock last year, and, well, our first league defeat this year came at Marseschlock by the exact same scoreline. In fact, I think the exact same pattern of play where they go in front, we equalise, they score and win. A frustrating one, because we were very good in this game. You could see Lucic had a great performance, but it did cost us some points. And yes, they have a player called Endrick in their team. That is his real name, but it is not the one you're thinking of. But we then picked things back up again, winning our next 3 matches in a row with relative ease. Unfortunately, that came crashing down a little bit as we conceded a 90th minute equaliser against Hibernian, and that kind of cost us a really good opportunity to continue that progression. But 8 wins and a draw out of your first 10 games of the year should be very good progress and should leave you comfortably at least close to the top. Yeah, no. Hammerin had other ideas as they went and won their first 10 matches of the year, and we somehow, despite the good start, found ourselves 5 points off the top of the league because they could not stop winning. A really good win against Floriana saw us get back to winning ways before once again dropping some points against Zabar, falling further behind. But we then had an opportunity in our next match as we travelled to Hammerin in what would be the biggest game of the season so far. Yeah. It didn't go so well. We led twice in this match. We were fantastic on the night in many ways. And then in the 85th minute, they got an absolutely nonsense penalty where our player walks past their guy, takes the ball off of him, with no contact because the ball is like literally a yard away, and they just get given a penalty for it, and it was enough for them to win the match. And that really did mud us. As this game right here ended up becoming Hamrun's 13th consecutive win in the league. They had won every single match this season, and it's like, what are you supposed to do about that? I guess win against them at least. And that meant that, remarkably, we found ourselves 10 points off the top of the league after just 13 matches, and staring down the barrel of it going, how are we supposed to pull this back? And then sadly, that same kind of form continued into January with us drawing 3 of our next 5 matches. We won the others and weren't losing any matches, but we just continually were dropping points in matches where, frankly, we just didn't deserve to. It would be like their only shot of the match and we'd have like 4 XG and not score. We were just really struggling to bury the ball, which is interesting because that's not really something we'd suffered from. We were kind of just hitting our marks most of the time, but it just wasn't quite enough. And this patchy run of form put us 11 points off the top with just 8 matches to go. And we were kind of thinking at this point, there's no way we're going to pull this back and try and win a title from here. But we did make a few little personnel changes in the midfield just to move some players around and get some players a little bit more comfortable. And boy, did that work. As we then went on a 7-match winning run, including some massive results against teams around us or at least near enough to us, including a 7-1 hammering of Hibernian in the league, who were like 5th at the time. And that was all despite Randy doing his very best to mug me off the moment I decided to substitute him after doing poorly in a match.
Found roll Platt. Dick. Oh, look at the little triangles here. Platt. He's like, bringing me off, are you? You prick. This is a really nice passing play. Look at this little triangle between Dick, Platt, and Afifi. Just sort of drops it around the side. Randy's like, have a bang on that. Look, he's doing this.
And in my defense, this is the kind of finishing he'd been doing lately to the point where I felt the need to do that.
Pushing on. Diaz. Randy's offside. What is that for a finish?
But sadly, even with all those results, going into the final match of the season at home against Hammerin, the title was already lost. They had been too good. Not that that stopped us from absolutely clapping them on the final day, 5-1. Now, admittedly, when you look at the stats for this game, this was never a 5-1 match. This would have probably been like a 1-1 draw or a 2-2 draw. We were very fortunate to win it by the amount that we did. It was just one of those matches with Shallow, Lucic, Randrup, Jeffinho got a pen, and Diaz grabbed one late on. Very strange game. Their goalkeeper had an absolute mare. We definitely didn't deserve to win it by anywhere near as much, if at all. But that's life sometimes, right? We've had a lot of bad luck. It was nice to get a little bit back. As in the end, we did pull the gap back to 6 points and ended up actually with a better goal difference than them. But it was just one of those lightning in a bottle seasons that Hammerin had, that there was almost nothing we could do about it. Bear in mind, the tally that we got last year of 69 points, nice, was an extremely large tally for a team in Malta to get in that amount of matches, and we didn't think the Hammer were going to put anything close up. And were they to have got anything against us in that final day, they would have equaled or bettered it, which is crazy. The maximum points you can get in this league is 78, and they got 68. But we did get second by a comfortable margin from everybody else, and luckily the board were satisfied enough with that we weren't going to get sacked, because that was a genuine concern. And this is the first time in any of my Building a Nation saves since all the way back in Tromsø, where once we got the title, we then actually relinquished it at some point. We did that with Tromsø in like season 19 or something, where we somehow Molde won the league in that save. But this is the first time that's actually happened, and I think just with us playing in European football as well, it just kind of got too much for us, and I think we were a little bit unlucky as well. Now, when you look at the pure XG table, we were actually better than them in many ways there. It's just that they overperformed by 14 points, and there's not really a lot you can do about it when the just sheer statistic or the just luck is on their side a little bit there. That just happens sometimes. I don't think we really did a lot wrong statistically this year. But Floriana and Birkirkara join us in Europe for next season as well, and it's kind of back to the basics, how it was right at the very start of the save with Floriana and Birkirkara and Hamrun, and it's just kind of gone back to that now just with us. It's taken a little while, but they've settled down. Down at the bottom though, Moster were appalling, minus 50 goal difference there, absolutely an awful side. Marsa did in the end go down, but Nashar Lions did stay up on their first time back in the top flight. As for the second tier, Valletta and Balsand Youth actually make an immediate return to the top flight, and at one point that was not looking on, as Luta were actually the leaders at one point, and in the end bottled it right at the very end. They were so close. I mean, look at those points tallies as well. From 30 matches to get those kind of points in that kind of league, very impressive. But it would have been some feat if Luta had managed to get up, because they're still semi-professional against all the teams around them being professional. It would have been one hell of a story for them to get promoted, and it's a bit of a shame. In other better news though, we did at least soften the blow by winning the cup, with Thomas Randrup and Lucas Marza grabbing the goals in this one to make sure of it, which we went behind very early on in this one, and it could have been a different story. But winning the cup, winning the Super Cup as well, and obviously, you know, coming second in the league, I suppose, has sort of softened the blow of us not winning it this year, so the board aren't too pissed, especially as we got a takeover after the season finished, so it's kind of wiped the slate clean a little bit anyway. And in amongst all this, chat had felt that they had discovered that the last Maltese cow had passed away a few years ago in Malta, and it just led to some shenanigans.
In loving memory, Maltese cow. Can we get some rips in chat for Maltese cow? Graphic design is my passion. Missed this banger. Oh, God. It's so stylized. Perfect. No notes.
Hang on. There you go. Get it in focus. We're doing Aberdeen Angus today. Now then, time to talk about us and Europe. And part of the reason I feel like we weren't able to be as competitive, although we were still very good in the league this year, is because of the extra distraction of European matches. And our squad didn't quite have the quality depth in order to make that work on two fronts with all the extra games. But our first Champions League draw was against RFS of Latvia, and we went to Latvia and won 3-0. Very fortunate to win 3-0. Randrup Platt and Christian Rodriguez giving us the goal. And we knew that if we could just get through one round, we'd have an amazing opportunity to get into at least the Conference League group stages, because we'd get the extra drop downs if we could. We then followed that up by absolutely hammering them in the home game and then losing 2-1, because of course we did. But it luckily was enough for us to get through, but it was sucky to lose the potential coefficient points that we could have got for this game. Things then got even worse as we then drew Olimpia Ljubljana in the next round of the Champions League and flew into a 3-1 lead with just 15 minutes to go. But unfortunately, they scored goals in the 87th and then the 95th minute to get a 3-3 draw here, which statistically is entirely fair, but we were so close to a massive victory. And if we'd won that match and got through this tie, it would have been guaranteed group stages of some sort. Unfortunately, we just weren't at the races in the second leg and just did not get anything going for it. Jakupovic with a goal, or in fact 2 goals, and Timmy Mac Elshnik got the others as we lost 6-4 on aggregate. But we were at least able to drop down into the Europa. Had we gone out in the first round, we'd have gone straight to the Conference League. And our reward would be an old favourite, Ferencváros. But then remarkably, we went to Hungary and got the victory. 2 more goals for Tommy Randrup, and then another one for Issa Keita was enough for us to get a 3-2 victory in Hungary and give ourselves a great chance in the home match. We knew that if we could just avoid defeat, we'd be guaranteed a place in the Conference League groups. And then we just put on one of the games of our lives. A 6-1 hammering of Ferencváros at home. Christian Rodriguez was imperious. 3 assists in this game, but also 2 more goals for Thomas Randrup, 2 for Lucas Marza, 1 for Dick, 1 for Boalo. It was just an absolute demolition job to win 9-3 on aggregate. And at this point, we're like, hey, what's to stop us? Let's just keep on going. As then we drew Astana of Kazakhstan. As it turns out, we were just much, much better than them, as we went to Kazakhstan and won 6-0 in our next match. We were firing in goals left and right, and at this point, we felt there's nothing we can't do here. We were firing goals against much better teams than Hamrun, and felt that the league was going to be a shoo-in for this at this point. But as you know, that's not how it worked out. Esselink, Cater, 2 more from Rodriguez, Boileau, and Lefteris Papadopoulos with the goals. What a result. And then because it's us, naturally, we got clapped at home. I mean, we kept the scoreline tight with goals from Cater and Esselink. There was some rotation in here, but to lose the home game after winning the away game 6-0 was a wild one. But 8-3, through we went, and that meant that we would play in the Europa League group stages for the first time ever, becoming the first ever Maltese side to do so. And this is when it gets a little bit dicey, as our first game in the Europa League was away at old channel enemies HJK. We were 2-0 down after 40 minutes, got one back at the start of the second half through Ruel Platt, and then 2 goals in 2 minutes from Lucas Marza gave us our first ever group stage win. And I think we just about deserved it on the night, and we're thinking, hang on a minute. We've got some winnable matches at home against like Norgeland and Lech Poznan. We thought, this is doable perhaps for us. Can we actually get out of the group? And then we got one hell of a comeuppance at that point. Mateus Carrera 2-footed someone 22 minutes into our game against Hoffenheim. And then, despite nearly getting to half-time, the wheels just came off. A 5-1 defeat. Ruel Platt was able to score a goal. At least we scored, I suppose, but it did show the real quality gap that we were dealing with. As we then hosted Rangers. And Lefteris Papadopoulos decided to 2-foot someone in this game.
It's better sides. You're
conceded another 5 goals. Tommy did manage to at least score us a couple in this one, making it 5-2, but we were making a habit of conceding a lot of goals against much better sides. Still scoring, but the red cards weren't helping us. We then travelled to Tottenham, and a very, very rested and rotated Tottenham side put us to the sword in this one. However, we did equalise in this game at the Spurs Stadium, which was nice for us, I suppose. Lucas Marza's goal in the 25th minute did at least level the score before Romero and Brian Hill put them back in front again. 3 straight defeats, scoring a decent amount, but conceding way too many. But we thought we'd have a chance at home against Norgeland up next. We were wrong, as they also clapped us 4-1, but we were getting closer statistically now. We were starting to get a little bit more matched against these teams. Marza scored again, but they just scored some fantastic goals in this game. They were having their own sort of goal of the month competition against us, so another 4 goals conceded, but what did we expect, really? But then came one of the most unbelievable matches I've seen in FM for many, many years, and it's this one. But it's not for good reasons. Sirens 4, Ludogorets 5. If you look at the time of these goals, we were 4-1 down at half-time, having been 4-0 down going into half-time nearly. By the 87th minute, we'd pulled it back to 4-all. We'd come from 4-0 down. And then we got given a penalty against us for a push in the box. You know those random ones that you don't see anything, it just goes, penalty! They happen a little bit too much for me on FM24 at the moment. I feel like too higher of a proportion of the penalties given are for stuff like that at the moment. And that cost us the result. But what a heartbreaking moment to come back from 4-0 down to then lose it 5-4. We were gutted, as you can imagine. And then the sort of embarrassments continued into the game against Club Brugge. We actually played fantastically well in Belgium here and probably should have done much better. Ronnie Chalot scored his first goal in Europe for us. Randy scored. El Shazli scored and then decided to just 2-foot someone in the 90th minute for no reason. There's literally 3 players around him.
right. Come on, there's 4 of you around him. Win the ball. Oh, piss off.
And I think we were very hard done by to actually go and lose here as well. We were really giving teams a go and seemingly growing into the tournament, but we just couldn't stop conceding goals. Part of the fun, though. This tactic is chaos. We know that. And then on the final day, it was yet another defeat. Our 7th consecutive defeat in the Europa League. And again, it's a game where I think we deserve better. We deserve more from this. Lech Poznan were able to just take their chances. I think 3 of their 4 goals were just deflections. Conceding a lot of deflected goals in Europe. Papadopoulos got a pen. Randy got another one for us. We don't really seem to start playing until we're 3-0 down in a lot of these matches. But you can see through these statistics that as the group stage wore on, we seem to be getting closer and closer statistically in the matches and actually starting to win some of those battles. It just wasn't quite enough to get the scoreline to translate to it. As in the end, we ended up coming 35th. Just the 1 win in there, 7 defeats, 32 goals conceded in the group stage. Our only real saviour was the fact that we scored 17 goals. We scored more goals than Bournemouth, who won the damn group. We just conceded also 31 times more. But that's fine. It was our first ever appearance in there. We got lots of money for playing in Europe, and I mean lots of money. Our bank balance was sat at like £5.5 million as a result of the European fixtures and all the gate receipts and all that glorious stuff, and just pure prize money. It was wonderful, and that's what we're going to be using over the course of this summer to really strengthen our team. It happens. We did our best. As for our compatriots in Europe, it did not quite go so well. Tarshin made their European debut and were actually able to sneak past Lipaia before being relatively easily swept aside by Pogon. Zabar fared even worse, going straight out in the very first round against Flora Tallinn with a bit of a whimper. Hamrun, on the other hand, did actually do a little bit better, getting through the first round against College Europa very easily and then moving past Paphos as well, before then coming up against their old enemy, Servette, who had beaten them in the group stages of the Conference League last year and made light work of them with a 5-0 defeat, meaning that we were, in fact, the only team actually in the groups this year. But it's still solid progress considering how early we are in the save. And you might think that that's actually gained us a lot of points, and it actually has. Like a 3.375 season. Again, it's another solid year. It does grow our points tally by another 1 point 5 points and it pushes us up, except it doesn't really, because Montenegro actually had a better season. Well, they didn't. They had a worse season, but they were losing a bad one. And as a result, they actually moved above us. So we've actually lost a place this year, despite doing better. But that's fine. Sometimes you've got to take a step back to take a step forward. And I feel like we're in prime position to do that, especially once we get rid of this year, next year, the 2.6. This 1.3 and 1.1 year, once we're under the years of replacing them, that's where I think we can make huge progress and start to go towards top 30. Because I think if we can just put some 4 and 5 point seasons down, which I believe we'll be capable of by then, that's going to be what really starts to carry us into that top 30 and starts to actually get us some real progress. But it's early days yet. We're not expecting much. Now, as for the youth intake, for once I can actually show you it, even though it is pure shit. This was our youth intake. This is the worst one we've had so far, but for once we actually signed up the entire crop of them just to give us some like bodies in our under-19 squad. Best player, 2-star PA. I mean, what can I say? Except, goddamn. And these guys might actually be better than the ones we had in the first year. It's just as our squad has grown, it's probably exceeded that rate. And I don't think we're ever going to get a youth intake that's anything worth talking about. Every single one has been an E. I'm actually kind of hoping at some point we see an F-rated youth intake, because I've genuinely not seen one of those before since the youth intake previews were brought into FM. Stats-wise, Tommy Randrup, despite my sort of displeasure with him at times, has been our top scorer again, though, with 23 goals. Point being, though, he had like 18 at Christmas and really did struggle over the second half of the year. But he's still here, and he got 10 assists. Like, 33 goal contributions is still fabulous from him. But he has now got a little bit of competition. Marza, again, with 19 goals and 9 assists, is still fantastic when you look at the actual XG he had. He's starting to fall off the pace a little bit, but next year we do hope to extend his loan. I think he's actually got one more year left anyway, because he will count as a homegrown player for us in Europe next year, despite not being a permanent signing. But El Shazli, with 13 goals this year, has been amazing from that midfield spot. Only 3 assists, which does let him down a little bit, but he's mostly just there for the goals. Lucic with double digits in both is amazing. Shallow, despite only playing half a season, 11 goals is decent for him. Next year I want to see him get in mid-20s, and I feel like he can with a proper run of games now that he's settled in. Diaz with 8 is not bad when you consider he's only started 9 games. It's pretty decent. Rule Platt's done okay, but he's one of the few sort of forward players that's actually underperformed his XG. Christian Rodriguez has still been on the ball, but has played less football this year due to the emergence of Miroslav Lucic. Esslink's fallen down the pecking order, and possibly this might be his last year, even though he would count as homegrown. But all in all, very happy with that. And as for the assists, you can also see that Jar Jar is also up on that list too. Dick got into double figures again. Uri Lucky gets 8 assists as well. It's just been a good year. I mean, Papadopoulos with 7, but obviously he faded out of the team as Afifi came in later on. We spread the goals around a lot, and I think that's helped, but as the season winded down, we really did start to find something. And I think with the right recruitment this summer, we can easily win the title back again, put Hamrin back in their place. They're not going to have another season like that. It's just statistically so unlikely, and I think we'll be able to win it very comfortably next year. The question is what competition we'll be playing in, because of course we don't have to worry about Champions League. We do have to worry about the potential of having to go through 4 rounds of Conference League, but if we could, I reckon this team could actually do bits in the Conference League groups with the right signings, and provided we can avoid one of the massive teams that will be in the Conference League playoff round, if we can avoid them and get a decent run, I reckon there's a great chance we can qualify for it next year and really get some... I think we could get to the knockouts potentially. The finances this year is very good, and I'll show you why. We have £9 million in the bank. And this is nothing to do with prize money and stuff. This is all from... Actually, it is. It's from European prize money, I suppose. The league prize money and the TV money now has become almost irrelevant to us, which is exactly what we wanted. We made like £4.5 million just from our European running this year. But also, right at the end of stream, just after stream, in fact, we got a consortium takeover. Now, I haven't finished the completion of that just yet because they want to do meetings and stuff about like giving us even more money, which is actually wild. So they also dumped another 2 million in. Point being, we have a transfer budget of £4.5 million. Now, obviously, we cannot spend that. That's simply not going to be possible for us, particularly as they've already announced that they're expanding the stadium, which is going to cost us another £1.5 million. And the worst thing about that is it means that it probably will cost us even more money when they then decide to build a new one, because for some reason they've chose to expand it rather than build a new one. So they're going to have to do it at some point. But either way, we're in a very healthy situation financially and actually are going to be able to spend a little bit more cash than normal, particularly as we've got our eye on an unbelievable Bolivian right-sided player who could be a genuine worldie, not even like a worldie for us. He's the kind of guy that I feel like PSG might come after if we don't get in there quick. I mean, obviously we'll have him for a few years and then they'll have him anyway, but regardless, I want to try and see if we can get him. But if you want to see him, come over to stream and ask me about him. His name is Juan Martinez. And the aim for this year is just to use this cash to build a team that compete on both fronts, get into the group stages of the Conference League if we can, and kind of go from there. But if we don't, that's fine too. We've got cash that will last us for the year without any kind of problems with that, and just got to win that title back and absolutely clap it this year. I feel like we could be putting up some moon money numbers. But anyway, that catches us up with what's happened in Season 4 of Building a Nation. Thank you for joining me with the recaps this year. See you guys over on stream for the Christmas quiz and also all kinds of transfer goodies. And I'll see you lovely people in the new year. So have a lovely Christmas, have a lovely new year, and I'll see you guys very, very soon. Like and subscribe, all that jazz. Hold your gun. Capybara. Bye-bye.